Hey everybody, welcome to the Examiner Gamer Podcast. It is I, as always, Tristan, and this time Lauren has taken her leave of absence because she's sick, and I am joined by someone that many of you are probably familiar with in many of my videos. We're joined by Shay.
Hey guys!
Hey, and so it's a little longer since the last episode, but I have a lot to talk about. Not so much in games, but in news. But why don't we kick things off with what you're playing or whatever? And Shay, why don't you kick it off since you're the new guest?
On the 3DS, I am playing Etrian Odyssey 4 and Persona Q, and still a little Fire Emblem, but I've been more focusing on Persona Q right now.
Why don't you talk about your dedication to Etrian Odyssey 4?
Oh my god. Okay, so there was a time when I bought all the Etrian Odysseys. I've been a pretty loyal fan. Actually, I'm a pretty loyal fan to most Atlas franchises, I suppose. I ended up losing my game. I'd say at least halfway through, and I was fairly high leveled, and I had a lot of cool stuff, and I lost it all. And now I bought it on the 3DS store. I'm slowly rebuilding my once great game.
That is some dedication. I don't know, if I ever lost a game, I think I would just say, well, guess I'm moving on to the next game. Was Etrian Odyssey like the first like dungeon like map game that you've ever played?
Yeah, Etrian Odyssey was kind of my first. I mean, the older Persona games were similar, but you didn't get to edit your map like you do in Etrian.
Yeah, it's a first-person RPG.
Yeah,
I think the very first-person RPG I played, and I was like, I'm never gonna get used to this. Was a friend of mine had Eye of the Beholder for the Game Boy Advance, and I was just like, no, what? This is dumb. And my first Etrian Odyssey game was 3, and I was like, yeah, this is really hard, but it's kind of cool. The art direction is like super rad, and the music's awesome too.
yeah.
It's a very late on story, but
it's like those old D&D games for the PC back in the day. It was almost all text, and you got to choose it was like a choose your own adventure, but it was on the PC.
it's all about the gameplay. I mean, it's really giving you a challenge. Atlas really knows how to give RPG fans like really what they want. If you want a cakewalk, you can put it on the casual difficulty, but even the casual difficulty is pretty hard. So I mean, you really have to lean into it. It takes some getting used to, but I think 4 is much better in 3. It seems like the further they go on, like the more easier it is to like jump into, I would say.
They're making them a little more fan friendly nowadays.
Yeah, it's nice to give people options, just like in Fire Emblem. Segue into that. I was always like a huge fan of Fire Emblem, but those games took me like 1,000 hours to do because I would always like reset the game if a person died and then jump right back into it.
Yeah.
And I have earned my Fire Emblem chops. Dang nabbit. I have earned them. So when I got Fire Emblem Awakening and it gave me the option to have it be casual, and like if your enemy or if your recruit dies in battle, he'll just go away until the next battle or whatever. Like, I appreciate the hardcoreness of it. Like, oh, you lost a team member. That's just like real war. But I mean, I'm old now. I don't have as much time to dedicate to one specific game to play like 1,000 hours. So lay off, hardcore people. I demand more casual play like that, just for the option. If you don't want to have it, you don't have to use it.
Right. Fire Emblem was the first game I bought for my Game Boy Advance, and I remember being so frustrated. I had finally gotten Matthew. He got killed in like the first battle I got him, and I was like, God damn it, I need a thief. And my thief just went and died.
Yeah, I know, exactly. That's the real trouble of it. And then, there wasn't, all the previous games, there wasn't any backtracking, so you couldn't even level up your guys. So if you actually lost a guy, it's like, well, now I have super weak allies because I just lost my huge, awesome character. That's crap. And now, in Awakening, you could, like, train, you could do all the side stuff. It's awesome. It really opened up the the series in a whole new way.
Yeah.
And I really can't wait for the next game to come out. Anything else you want to say about your stuff?
If you haven't played Etrian Odyssey, there's that demo on Nintendo.
Yeah, and
Otherwise,
those games are like always super cheap. You can pick up a copy for like $15 on the eShop as well. So
Yeah.
just wait for one of those Atlas sales that come around like seemingly like once a month.
yeah.
And, check it out. Speaking of niche Japanese companies, I actually played something courtesy of NIS America. God, it's really hard to say. It's HTOL hashtag NIQ the Firefly Diary. That's the real name. So I don't know, hotel number Neek, whatever. The Firefly Diary. Well, let's call it that.
Hotel
It's-
Rwanda.
starring Denzel Washington. Oh no, not Denzel Washington. The
Don
other,
Cheadle.
Don Cheadle. So have you ever played Limbo?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay. So it's very much like Limbo. So it starts off, and there's no text in this game really. There's a girl with antlers. Her name is Mion, and she has like a little fairy.
Hey, hey.
But yeah, at least there's like no text or noises. So she's woken up. She has amnesia. She has antlers. I don't know what's up with that. And then she's being led around by this fairy called Lumen, and she also has like a shadow fairy named Umbra as well.
Oh.
So you're basically like wake up in this ruined world, and the gameplay is basically you guide Mion by controlling the fairy, and then you can go into like the shadow world to like basically Umbra can connect to shadows to like you can tap X or the actual Vita screen and like it'll interact with an object, like it'll drop something if something is on an edge, or if a switch needs to be hit you can go to the shadow world, or you can use it in the real world too. Very aesthetically just like Limbo. It has death, but it's not as gruesome as the deaths in Limbo, but they are there. It's more cutesy. It's like a really, really pretty game, but it's ultimately forgettable, but it's like a nice change of pace from like the text-heavy, crazy RPGs of their ilk.
Yeah.
I also have been punkering with Fantasy Life, which is another 3DS game. This is a very portable, heavy episode, I guess. But for those that don't know, that game came out like last year in October, and it took me a while to actually get it. But I've been like very dedicated between that and Persona Q as well. But it's like Animal Crossing meets Dragon Quest IX. It's centered around you're just like this dude or gal bustling Castletown, and you can take on one of 12 jobs, like a paladin, and 3 other jobs are like a fighting type class, or there's like a gatherer type class, like a miner, where you get ore, and then there's like creators as well, like a blacksmith uses that ore to make stuff, and you can take on all these jobs simultaneously, which is pretty awesome. You just go like to this office, and you will be transformed into a new class, and then you just go to your guild officer, and they'll like level you up depending on like certain quests, and it's really neat. It's like I said, Animal Crossing, those type of like sim games have never interested me, but because there's some like RPG hue on it, and it being like very cutesy and very friendly, I spent a lot of time like basically sewing clothes a couple days ago. I probably put like an hour into sewing clothes to make sure I had like an awesome level up in that. So it's and the action's good too. It's an action RPG when you're out in like the actual world itself.
So
and,
as far as battling goes, is it like Link's Awakening kind of?
Yeah, I mean it's like a top down. It's essentially like Zelda. Dragon Quest IX actually started out as an action RPG before it was changed.
Oh.
The basically the design for that went into the Blue Dragon DS game, the second one, like Awakening Dragon or whatever. Like that game was essentially Dragon Quest IX, what it was supposed to be originally.
Oh.
So it's pretty cool. Again, very cutesy, but oh my gosh, there's a story, but it's completely irrelevant. There's like a weird butterfly that's accompanying you around everywhere, and there's like a castle, and there's like all kinds of really crazy characters, and it's a level 5 game too, so like they have great design and stuff, but there is so much text in this game, it is insane. Just like Persona Q, the text is just crazy and stupid. It's just like it just drags on and on and on. It's like, I get it, just shut up. I'm telling you all this dumb stuff that I don't care about, so it's just ultimately skippable. But I'm having a really good time actually playing the game itself. So I mean, yeah, if you want something just to play and hunker down with for a long time, my gosh, I must have like 20 hours in it. and I've barely been doing like the main quest just because I'm trying to build up all 12 classes, which is crazy. So that's what I've been playing. A lot of old stuff for sure, except for Hotel Rwanda, but pretty soon a lot of new games that I should get review copies will be coming out soon. All right, Shay, I think
Nice.
that about does it for that. So let's head into the news. All right, time for This Week in News.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Okay, or, this gathering of news, I should say, because some of these stories are a little old, but they are very relevant, at least in the context of a week or two. Anyway, so Bethesda, in a crazy announcement, decided that they're going to be holding an E3 press conference the Sunday before E3 starts. And they have never done a press conference before, so obviously a lot of people have been speculating what they could be showing, because they wouldn't have a press conference for just one game. So I took a look just to remind myself what they have in development right now. Of course, they have the Elder Scrolls Online. The console version should be out in June, so I think they'll be pre-E3. So maybe they might talk about expansion, or they might talk about like the success or something related to Elder Scrolls Online. Doom 4, which they showed a trailer last year, which is very brief and no gameplay really. So they'll probably pop that out. And they also had like an announcement trailer for this game called Battlecry, which essentially it was a Team Fortress game. Everything on the docket that they have that has been announced. Now, I think, or at least I hope, they announce Fallout 4. Pray to Jeebus that they announce Fallout 4, because, oh my gosh, I'm ready. Hey, did you ever play any of the Fallouts? Or the last console generation, I should say?
Yeah, I played Fallout 3. I have New Vegas, but I've only played Fallout 3.
Did you like it?
I did.
So Fallout 4 is probably on the docket, along with maybe Dishonored 2. They may want to announce that, though, I mean, that's 5 games. That's a beefy press conference for sure, but I think they would stick to the first 3 I said, and then probably either Fallout 4 or Dishonored 2, I would say. Next is frustrating because Nintendo, I have ranted about Amiibos before. They are irrelevant in terms of like their usage for anything, really. But Nintendo announced that essentially Amiibos will be able to unlock specific NES and Super NES content in a new Wii U app. I have the quote here that is very ambiguous and sounds like it's essentially. Let me read this first, and then I'll get to my analysis. So, quote, this is from Nintendo now. This is via a article onto Kotaku that reported on it. We are also planning a free download app for Wii U in which you can enjoy NES and Super NES games with your Amiibo in the first half of this year, continued Iwata. With this app, once you tap your Amiibo on the NFC area of the gamepad, you will be able to play highlighted scenes of one certain title for NES or Super NES. Very vague. He also continues, we hope that when you tap your Amiibo, the quickly changing game scenes will pleasantly surprise you and make you feel as though you have just exchanged a game cartridge. Not a complete game cartridge, though. Just wanted to add that in there. Which, to me, I don't know if you're thinking this too, this sounds like they're making, like, videos that you tap your game and then you get to play that certain scene as if you were, like, going on YouTube to look for that certain scene. And you can enjoy it just as an advertising thing, like, hey, do you not know about Metroid? Play this thing for like a minute. Wow, wasn't that great? Now buy it. I'm sure there'll be like links too. It's very weird.
I don't like this idea at all.
Maybe if you have that Amiibo, they might be like, oh, click this link and then you can buy this game at a discount price. Now that would be cool since you invested on a specific like Amiibo.
Right.
But
especially if you got one of the harder to find ones.
The way it's just worded is just very strange, and it really, again, it's obvious that Nintendo is just struggling to think of a crazy idea for these Amiibos besides like the collecting aspect. Next, going back to NES, of course, they just had a big press event, and they announced Western Fall 2015 releases for Disgaea 5. Of course, I'm excited for that because I love Disgaea. For the PS4, Danganronpa, another episode, Ultra Despair Girls, which For those that don't know, Danganronpa came out last year. They are visual novels, harkening back to maybe a cross between Battle Royale and Phoenix Wright. This one is actually like an action game with 2 female protagonists. I don't know much about it. I know it came out last year in Japan. It looks pretty cool. More Danganronpa is good for me. Now, this last one, I had you watch the trailer for because this is called Rodea the Sky Soldier. And the reason why it's like relevant is because Yuji Naka is behind it. For those who don't know, Yuji Naka is like basically the man behind the Sonic series. He left Sega in 2006 to create a company called Probe, and he hasn't really made a lot of relevant games since it came out in 2006. There's a couple games that like I have played, like Digimon Adventure for the PSP, which is essentially a retelling of the first season of Digimon. It's a turn-based game. It's pretty cool. There is a English patch you can get for it online, and they also strangely made that Monster Manor Street Pass game for the 3DS. Did you ever buy that one?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that's a really fun game. But I mean, he's made a couple other things, but like nothing crazy good. But I mean, it sounds like, and from that trailer, I mean, it looks very much kind of like Sonic, but like a reimagining or spiritual successor for like the next kind of game, and it's for the Wii U. It looks kind of promising.
Do you remember Knights?
Knights
where yeah, it kind of is like a fusion between Sonic and that, just with the flying.
I agree.
Flying
Yeah.
aspect.
He does hand in that game as well. So yeah, he doesn't have the namesake to Sonic anymore, and he can't make any Knights games. So new series. So I'm very excited for this. I'm very hopeful. Some stupid segue. Another trailer we watched was Dissidia Final Fantasy, which is a sequel, a much anticipated sequel for the PSP Dissidia fighting games. For those that don't know, Dissidia is a fighting game series that starred basically all the main characters from Final Fantasy 1 through 13 in a basically Smash Brothers kind of fighting game. It was very, I guess, more along the lines of...
hold on, Power Stone.
Power Stone, yeah, it's like Power Stone. You're in an open arena and you're beating the crap out of each other. Anyway, very cool cutscene, or CG trailer, essentially.
Where it had the Hero Light.
With the Hero of Light, it had Cloud in there, it had Terra, it had like a cat girl.
It had Lightning.
That
girl from 14.
From 14 or 11, either one. It's hard.
I think 14 is specifically the cat lady. The main character or the one that they use from 11 is that little midget one, Tarotaro.
Yes. The bad thing is this is only for arcades, specifically Japanese arcades.
Oh, Japan! You're the only country that still pretty much has them.
Essentially, it's quite possible that this is just like the testing ground, because did you hear about that Tekken Pokemon game?
Oh no.
It's called Pokken Tournament. It's Pokken. Look at some trailers for that as well. It actually looks pretty cool.
No.
But it's not Tekken versus Pokemon, so don't worry.
With Tekken's such a technical game.
Can you imagine Pikachu fighting like Hayachi? That'd be amazing. God.
They might as well freaking put Pokemon and DOA together.
Give like Pikachu breast.
Oh no.
No, but Pokken Tournament is essentially just the team behind Tekken making a Pokemon fighting game. For arcades in Japan only, but they said probably for the consoles later on. But I really hope that they do make a console version, because they've never made a console version of Dissidia. It's a shame, because a lot of people probably didn't play Dissidia because it was on the PSP, which is very underutilized in America.
It was.
Japan liked it though, but more on the PSP later. Anyway, oh man, that's the news. Let's move on to something else. Hey everybody, it's your host the most, it's Tristan. Are you liking the show so far? I really hope you are. I can't stress this enough, I really want to hear feedback. So drop me a line on YouTube or on my Examiner page, anywhere you feel like it. Let me know what you like about the show, what you don't like, what you want to see added. And of course, if you want to support me, you can always subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as follow my writing on Examiner.com. That's EXAMINER, Examiner.com. It's the place to go for everything you want to know. Check it out. Now, back to the show. For this game idea segment, another piece of news. Essentially, Square Enix made this program last year called the Square Enix Collective, in which indie game companies could pitch ideas and they would Square Enix would help publish them. So they announced, and I'm going to read this whole thing, essentially that they're going to open up their IPs for 3 properties, and then we're going to obviously give our ideas for those 3 properties, as well as some other Eidos properties that we want to see be made into future games. But let me read this quote from Square Enix. It's been almost a year since we fully launched Collective, and one of the headline announcements back then was the prospect of allowing developers to create games based on old Eidos IPs. But it wasn't something I wanted to open up right away in case it overshadowed the original games that developers submitted to the platform. Well, now the platform is established and we've more experience in supporting projects, both in feedback and through crowdfunding. So it feels like the right time to live up to early promise, which means that from now on, we're going to allow developers to pitch game ideas based on the following IPs: Gex, Fear Effect, and Annachronixx. We have more IPs that we may open up in the future, but we'll start with those and see what the response is like. AKA, we are opening up the bottom of the barrel, and you guys can go ahead and dive in. Now, Shay, do any of these ring a bell to you?
Fear Effect.
But I got a little data on all of these, just so that we can have some background, because I know Gex, and I played Gex, and I'll get to that. We'll start first with Annachronixx. So, the game takes place on Annachronixx, a small planet floating inside a huge artificial sphere known as Cinder 1. Husk of futuristic cities exist on artificial tectonic plates, which constantly shift to connect different parts of the planet. Inhabitants believe that diseased aliens were quarantined there eons ago, resulting in the name Annachronixx. Alright, this is a turn-based PC RPG. They said inspirations were Chrono Trigger, which is cool. There was only one game in the series, and it launched in 2001. The very aspect of it being a PC RPG is why I've never heard of it, especially way back then before the internet really took hold with a lot of like homes and stuff like that. The crazy thing is, first of all, it ended on a cliffhanger. There was planned expansions. Those got held back. Then they're like, oh, we're just going to make all those expansions into just one big sequel. That got pushed back. So for 9 years, it kept on getting pushed back. And then in 2010, the writer, Tom Howell, he said that if a sequel is not made in the next 10 years, he would like reveal the plot online on a blog or whatever to like fix the cliffhanger. So it's 2014 now. There are still 6 years left for someone to make an Annachronixx game with Tom Hall. And which comes to reason is, if like an indie company says they want to make an Annachronixx game, essentially they would have to talk to Tom Hall to see what his notes are for that plot, because he's been kicking it around for the... Essentially, it sounds like Tom Hall has this whole thing like in his mind, so he just needs to get like... My only advice is get Tom Hall on your back, or Tom Hall just pitch this idea to Square Enix, because essentially they're lending the IP out, so get that Square Enix money. Next, we have Fear Effect. So, I'll read this off, even though that you seem to know something about it. When the daughter of a powerful Hong Kong triad boss disappears, a trio of mercenaries search for her in the city. They have not been hired to find her, but they intend to kidnap the girl before her father's men locate her, then hold her for ransom. The girl in question, Wei Ming, has vanished into the fictional Shanji Protectorate. Hanasu Vetchel, the lead character and femme fatale of the group, used to work in a brothel somewhere in that region. Hannah arrives in Hong Kong accompanied by her 2 male partners, Royce Glass and Jacob Decourt. And things get on ahead from there. Fear Effect is known for a lot of things. It was one of the first cel-shaded games in existence.
Really pretty.
I love cel-shaded games. It plays like Resident Evil, aka it's a tank-controlled action game. But as the name suggests, Fear Effect, The game's title refers to the player's life bar. A meter which resembles a pulsing EKG. When the player's damage, the green line of the EKG will pulse faster and turn red. It is possible to regain health by performing acts that will calm the character's heart rate. There have been 2 games in the series, Fear Effect and Fear Effect 2. The last game was in 2001. Do you see a pattern here? There was a planned sequel. An unreleased third game titled Fear Effect Infernal was originally announced for the PlayStation 2. 2002, there was an E3 trailer with the only footage people have known, and there hasn't been any word since. So, have you played this game or any of the games?
I know I have seen somebody play this. I just can't tell you who.
Okay. Well, I didn't play the first game, but I have played the second game, that is. And basically, you're infiltrating an undersea casino or something like that. And it does use the tank control, so it's hard to get used to. And you're fighting robots, which was odd. And I kept on dying because of the fact that I was getting afraid to control these robots. And it's really jarring because all the characters look great in cell shading, but the backgrounds are pre-rendered, just like in Resident Evil or Final Fantasy. So it was an interesting experience. I didn't really make it that far, but I would like at least for Sony to re-release them on PSN. I would like to see a sequel, something more modernized for sure. But keep the cel shaded look, keep the same characters, do a remake, do a sequel for PS4. I don't know, whatever you want to do. I think it would be cool. I do know that she's a lesbian. I think the big thing back in the day in Fear Effect 2, all the ads for Fear Effect 2 were sexy lesbian, and they always had essentially, I saw the cutscene too. It's early in the beginning of the game, 2 girls undress in the same elevator or something like that. And it's oh, so risque. And, I mean, back in the PlayStation days, they did it a lot. With Fear Effect, they did it with Tomb Raider, a ton of other games because it's sexy girls. We know you boner boys want to see this. But lastly, so let me tell you what Gex is. Gex was watching his enormous TV one day when a fly buzzed by his head. Gex flicked out his tongue and swallowed it. Unknown to Gex, the fly was actually a metallic transmitter. Suddenly, Gex's remote jammed and the TV went blank. A huge hand shot out of the screen and grabbed Gex by his neck and pulled him into the media dimension. The cold claw belonged to Rez, the overlord of media dimension, who had intended to make Gex his new mascot and conquer the world. Notable things about this series: it was voiced by the comedian Dana Gould. I don't know if you know who that is. It was very much like Duke Nukem or Austin Powers, where it's annoying, topical humor that was good at the time, but would not hold up nowadays. But yeah, it's a 3D platformer. There are 3 games in the series. The last game was in 1999. Again, there's definitely a pattern. These have all been dead since frickin' Y2K wiped them out. Y2K wiped them out, perhaps for the better. The only game in this whole thing I would like to see is Fear Effect, just because I never got to experience it. Gex frickin' sucks. I need to replay it now just to see how bad it is, but from what I remember, I played it a lot because my brother got it from whatever, but I just, thinking back on it now, just imagine a frickin' Gecko as Austin Powers and playing that now with a very bad 3D platformer around it. I mean, the concept is cool, okay? A video game taking place where you could go into different channels. Essentially, every world was a new channel or whatever. So that is a cool concept for a video game. Going into a TV and going to a certain movie, a spoof of a movie or a spoof of a TV show. Today, it would be awesome to go into a reality TV thing. I mean, that would be cool to screw with characters from The Bachelor or some Bachelor type dating thing that they can riff on. Make Gex know he's irrelevant. He's a slob. Maybe he's fat. Maybe he's the concept of the game is he wants to get into a new video game series. He wants his new game made. Or maybe he's just was a fat slob and he's really mad at the Geico lizard or some other type lizard. It's I need to get myself in shape. So he, there's a montage and then he's oh no, I'm going to jump into the TV world once again, or I don't know. I mean, like I said, these are the bottom of the barrel type things because no one has thought about them since. There could be secret things behind the scenes where people have pitched these things and they've got, taken down. Again, Tom Hall has the idea for a sequel in mind. A sequel for Fear Effect was at some point developed, but then canned. Nothing for Gex. So I'll get to you in a second about any kind of Eidos properties you want. But I put Legacy on Kain of here. And coincidentally, today, a NeoGAF post put up a bunch of screenshots from this cancel game called Dead Sun, and it looks like it's a Soul Reaver game. Have you ever played any of these games, Shay?
Yes, I did. I played quite a few of the Legacy of Kain's and the Soul Reaver.
Yeah. I mean, in general, there's like no vampire games, even though there's like a butt ton of movies. But those games were pretty cool. The first one was very Diablo, like the first Legacy of Kain, and then the Soul Reaver
Yeah.
series was a cool action platformer. If you replay them, they do hold up. At least the first Soul Reaver and the first Legacy of Kain.
Right.
But I mean, they made some sequels for like the PS2 that were whatever.
Yeah.
Last year, Square Enix launched this game called Nosgoth, which is like a multiplayer free-to-play shooter or something like that. I don't know if it's out yet or if it's just in beta, but it is not what fans wanted when they announced it. Like, oh, we're making a new Legacy of Kain game set in the universe, which is the Nosgoth universe, and it's gonna be a multiplayer game, yay! And people didn't like that, but I was so mad when I saw this footage today because it looks really cool. Someone try and get the access to that footage if it's still out there. Get the assets, go to Square Enix and be like, we want to actually finish this game. Please let us finish this game, or something. Or hire the studio that was making it again, or something. I really would like another one of these games. Is there any Eidos properties that you want to see?
Legacy of Kain would be pretty high on my list. Otherwise,
Definitely Gex number 2.
oh god, you mean Gex number? No.
You should. I really look up commercials for that game or some stuff. I mean, it's horrid to watch.
I remember seeing ads for that back in the day, and
It was advertised all over the place.
yeah,
Oh
it
my
had
gosh.
too much coverage.
I didn't really play it back in the day, but Time Splitters, they could retread those waters. I've always wanted to play those, but they're kind of hard to find nowadays. Or, better yet, they can make new backyard wrestling, get ICP.
Oh yeah.
You know what?
How
That's
do
the-
magnets work?
That's the only thing I know of backyard wrestling is that's like an ICP thing.
Yeah.
So please don't make that. Though I'm sure there's like some tech-heavy ICP fan that is like, finally I can pitch my backyard wrestling game. Down the clown, etc., etc. Yay, KKK, or whatever they believe. I don't know. Faygo! God, that's dumb. Though, now that I think about it, I wouldn't mind seeing a Faygo game. Like, imagine it like Donkey Kong Country, and they're partying up in a treehouse, and they go down to get some Faygo, and their vault of Faygo has been stolen, so then you gotta go, I don't know, the world and rescue the Faygo. I don't know, that's...
Oh, this sounds like an indie game that could very well look like Donkey Kong.
Does Square Enix own the property to ICP? I think an ICP game would be pretty funny, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I hate
How do
ICP.
magnets work?
Yeah, you can fight Magnet Man. I don't know. I'm giving too much credit or airtime to ICP, and I gotta stop that because I don't want anybody coming after me from the what's the clown squad
Juggalos.
god? I can't remember.
Juggalos.
Juggalos, yeah, jiggling juggalos. But I would rather have them lend out their Square Enix properties, but I think they would never ever do that just because it's not their company. They bought Eidos and they have these things that they don't care about really. And I don't want to put words in their mouth, but yeah, I guarantee they're never gonna like, hey, anyone want to make a mana game? Just pitch this idea and you can make it. Top of your list, Shay, for Square Enix RPG. What do you want there to be a sequel of? Just offhand.
Oh, for Square Enix? I'm kind of full on Final Fantasy, so anything that's not Final Fantasy.
I'll give you an example. How about our new Chrono Trigger? That is at the top of my list.
Oh, but that's like trying to find parts of the Bible that were written a long time ago.
Very much so, since that was a very basically Justice League of developers to come together to make an amazing game. Or for crying out loud, just release Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 already. You've been developing Final Fantasy 15 since 2006. Get on your pace. They actually, I don't want to get into Square Enix rant, but they released a thing basically saying Final Fantasy 15, yeah, we're 60% done about. 2006, Shay. 2006, 60%. It's just, I should end this before
Doesn't Square Enix have 15 teams working on different games?
They have a buttload of teams, and a lot of their...
Almost all of them are Final Fantasy teams.
I know. I don't want to get into it.
How about 15 teams you have going, and have 2 or 3 working on separate projects? and then have everyone else focus on one goddamn game.
Well, you know, mobile's where it's at now. And
Gross.
speaking of mobile, that lends me into our next segment in our big, big rant of the episode. Alright, now for this extra life segment, we're gonna listen to me rant again. It took me a while to figure out what I want to talk about, and then I realized something brand new in my life. I have been without a cell phone service for essentially a couple of years. I hit it and quit it. I was a proud sponsor of AT&T, and then I was like, you know what? I met this girl in college and she told me there's a text app that's free if you have Wi-Fi. So I'm like, I'll just do that. And then I lost Wi-Fi, and it's hard to get internet in the country, essentially. So, fed up with it, I decided to go back into contract with AT&T. But holy crap, have everything got more expensive. I mean, back in the day, which was just a couple years ago, I was just paying like $70 for unlimited talking text with no data, really. I have a unlimited talking text plan with 6 gigs of data, and that is $70, plus there's the 2-year contract agreement. So it's basically, for 6 gigs of data, I'm paying $70, which is crazy firsthand. Secondly, with all the taxes and everything, monthly billing is about $120, something like that. For a phone, for me being by myself, that is a crazy amount of money to be paying for a cell phone service with 6 gigs of internet. Granted, it's great because this internet's super fast and reliable. If I wanted to get 10 gigs of data, do you want to guess how much more that would be?
140?
Almost. Essentially, the 10 gig plan would go from $70 to $100. 4 more gigs of data is $30. That is crazy, especially when people are paying for, Mediacom services for, I don't know, data and the 100 gig limit for significantly less than that, with bundles for TV and all that stuff. And this is just a cell phone. Again, by myself. If I wanted to get the cheapest plan, it would be $60 for 300 megabytes. That is insane. In a perfect world where Obama could do whatever he wanted, and he's a big proprietor on education and bringing communication to the country, it would be a lot of money though to basically bring an internet service to everybody. I live in a rural area. That's why it's hard for me to get internet. So I could go with satellite again, but that would be essentially I paid $80 a month for 10 gigs of data for our satellite thing. Why is it so much for the internet still? It's insane. AT&T is making bank. It is an insane amount of money. These other companies too. I don't understand how it's freaking 2015, Shay. When are we going to have Google Fiber throughout the country? Probably 2020? No, that's only 5 years. That's crazy. It's just insane to me how much cell phones cost, how much data is just so sparing in the country. There's so many people still don't even have any kind of data or anything. They're just locked in a hole somewhere, hermited out. They have no idea what the internet is, which might be a good thing because keeping some people away from the internet might be great because there's a lot of people that do destructive things on the internet. But for crying out loud, it's just insane.
Insane in the membrane.
Insane in the membrane. That was the Examiner Gamer Podcast, Episode 3. Thank you for joining me again, Shay.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Anything you want to leave a note on?
Square Enix needs to quit micromanaging and just pool their resources and focus on one friggin' game at a time. Remember the day when you had no money and you had just enough to make one final game? And what did you choose to call it? Final Fantasy. And what are you doing now? You're making us all wish this was the final one.
It's, certainly we could do an entire podcast on Square Enix and us helping them. If you want to pay 2 people to help you out, we'll do it. We'll use all your money. And then we'll see, oh, that's why they haven't done this stuff, because it takes a lot of time and effort. And, we just bankrupt Square Enix. Oh, well, at least we got 10 Chrono Trigger sequels.
We got 10 Chrono Trigger sequels. Each character got their own sequel, whole new cast.
Frog Game was actually just basically a spiritual successor to Frogger from the Atari. That was a bad choice on our part.
And we could finally make the Canterbury Tales game.
What?
We'll force Square Enix to go through with my idea of making the Canterbury Tales into a game. You can't stop me, Square Enix.
Hope no one likes Shay, because this is his first and final episode. He is now on jail. Square jail.
Square jail. You're on timeout, buddy. That was horrible.
But, your sentiments are very well said. Perhaps we'll talk more about Square Enix in the future. But again, thanks for joining me. Thank you, listeners. And stay tuned for more, as always, on the Examiner Gamer Podcast.
Boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, subscribe, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom.